And welcome back to the Y.E.S Functional Longevity Podcast, where we give you insight on how to get fit, feel younger, and live better. Hi, my name is Chris Barta, best-selling author and owner of Y.E.S Fitness. And today I have a very special guest. We're celebrating our 200th podcast. Imagine that 200 times it has something to actually say. That's over 4 years. It's like 4 years I've been doing this. I would never have thought. But Rachel, thanks for coming on board today.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Cosgrove, and I'm excited to be here to celebrate the 200 podcast. That's amazing, Chris.
It is kind of amazing when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Like I had 200 topics we talked about.
It's a lot.
So before we go any further, just so you know, today's topic is we're going to give you the secret formula to boost your weight loss during during menopause, pardon me. And for those of you who do not know Rachel, just a quick bio. Well, it's not really quick. It's kind of long if you remember the last time. For our dedicated listeners, you might remember that Rachel came on way back in our 8th podcast to discuss the D2S or Drop 2 Gene Size program. So just a little bit about Rachel, give you an idea if you don't know who she is. She's a 2012 IDEA Personal Trainer of the Year. She's a co-owner and operates Results Fitness in Southern California for, I think, over 21 years now, or
22 years now.
22 years. I'm always a year ahead of you. I should remember that. So Results Fitness has been named one of the top gyms in the United States by Men's Health. I don't know how many times in a row, 3-4 times in a row. Women's Best Gym by Women's Health Magazine, 2011. Rachel has a bachelor's degree in physiology from the University of California. She has multiple certifications. She is a strength and conditioning coach with the National Strength and Conditioning Association, International Society of Sports Nutrition, USA Weightlifting, Functional Movement Systems, Precision Nutrition, USA Weightlifting. You get the idea. Rachel knows what she's talking about. She's featured in many magazines. Like if you don't know who Rachel is and you're in the health and fitness business, then you've been living under a rock.
Well, thank you, Chris. That's quite the introduction.
You're welcome. I just want to get the point across here that Rachel is someone that you want to listen to. And at the end, we want to get your social media stuff in case somebody wants to start following you and listen to what you have to say. So,
okay.
We coach people over 40. My average age clientele is 57 years old. I know you're coaching people over 40 years old. And menopause and weight gain is always on everyone's mind. And it's not something that they typically will discuss with me. I think it might be a male-female thing. So I thought having you on and having a female, you're not quite there yet, I don't think, might be a little more credibility to what has to be said today. I do know that women will complain about hot flashes in class and stuff like that. But before we really get into the hormones and nutrition and exercise, all this, I want to think about the place where they really need to start. I think they really need to start with their mindset, this mental hurdle, because at the middle age, they start to think about everything's working against them and they just can't make change. And they've tried all these things all these years. And if they don't have the right mindset, they're not going to be able to get it done. So do you find mindset to be the first hurdle someone needs to overcome in a situation like this?
That's huge, Chris. I think I'm 47. So I'm not menopausal yet. And I don't think I'm in perimenopause yet, but I definitely have worked with a number of clients who have been through, perimenopause, menopause. And I think you're absolutely right. I think as we all age, all of us, right? Like as we start to, I start to approach 50, it's so easy to give in to, I'm just going, this is, it's too late. I'm just going to, gain weight. This is just how it's going to be. And your mind is so connected to your body. If you start to say those things, your body's listening. And so as soon as you start to give up or start to think, oh, it's too late, or, oh, I'm not going to be able to make any changes in the way that I feel or the way that I look. And your body's going to go, oh, okay, you're right. You're not, and you're going to start to, have a harder time, right? Like we have to start with the mindset. So I love that you started first with the mind, because if you really, decide in your mind that you're going to control the things that you can control, we can't control everything.
Right.
Hormones are powerful, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. But
Mhm.
we can control our mind. We can control what our thoughts are. We can, think about our thoughts. We can start to really, look at, making sure that we are ending the negative dialogue that we are saying to ourselves and starting to plant those positive seeds to be able to, make this whole thing much easier.
There's so many hurdles that come with menopause. I'm not going to have to experience them other than living with my wife. But the lack of sleep, insomnia, the hot flashes, cravings, you're tired, your
Yeah, the list
lifestyle has
of
changed a
like,
little bit,
yeah, it's
right?
like so many things. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
so many things,
it's
and
enough to make anybody crazy.
yeah, it's enough to make anyone crazy. I gotta say that I can empathize with the women in here when they get
For
the hot
sure.
flashes. They talk about they're so tired because they're not sleeping at night. But there are some things that they can do about that,
For
and
sure.
lifestyle things that you definitely can do about that. And mindset is really where we need to kind of start taking a look at that.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think, definitely knowing and meeting and hearing stories of other women that have, been able to,
mhm,
go through perimenopause, menopause, and I think that helps your mind because you're like, okay, it is possible for me to do some of the things, which I'm sure, we're going to get into that
mhm,
will make this, possible for me to. We've had so many clients that have reached their peak health and fitness in their 50s and 60s, where they're in
yeah,
the best shape of their life. Like
mhm,
they're doing things they never thought they could do.
mhm.
And so, to really shift that mindset of like, what can I do rather than, you know, giving into, oh, I'm just getting older and I'm going to be weak. I'm going to
Right.
be frail. I'm going to,
Mhm, mhm.
gain weight. It's going to be harder. Like, if you just start to say those things, then you're probably right.
And that just leads to some really poor lifestyle choices. When you get
Sure.
that mindset, you start to get depressed. You'll maybe start self-medicating. It's going to
Hmm.
really worsen your sleep. You're going to start even worse because you got to think about eating. Like, okay, so what's the difference? I'm just going to gain this weight anyway. I'm going to gain the weight. So having the right mindset is where we really need to start. So once they've got it in their mind, all right, I can do this. I listen to Chris and Rachel. I know I can do some of these things. Where should they start? Like, where should they start the measurements from?
Yeah, I mean, my advice to my clients is they start approaching their 40s and start
Mhm,
worrying about, premenopause and, maybe start noticing some hormone fluctuations.
mhm,
One, I mean, see your doctor. Like, you should have a doctor you
mhm,
trust, somebody that, we're not doctors. So, you definitely
mhm,
want to be working with a doctor who can help you, figure out what's going to be best for you, whether, you should go on some kind of hormone replacement therapy or if that's something that's, right for you and
mhm,
your body. But that's something you do want to discuss with your doctor. But there are things that you can control. And, I always, say to my clients, like, let's talk about what we can control,
mhm.
and I think, as far as measurement goes, like you said, what your question was, what should we measure,
Yeah, what
right?
should they how should they
Um,
measure their starting point in their progress as they've got the right mindset now they wanna take the journey of taking on trying to lose some weight, trying to transform their bodies again.
Yeah, and I think one, do not look at the scale, right?
Right.
I can tell you what not to do. Don't look at the scale because
Mhm,
our goal, especially at this time in your life, is to build
mhm,
muscle and not
mhm,
even just muscle. We want to build bone too, right?
mhm,
So we have so many clients that as they start to strength train, they've actually gone from being high risk for osteoporosis to
mhm,
being no risk for osteoporosis. So you think about that, like if you're building bone and then if we're building muscle, right? So we're getting stronger, we're increasing our metabolism, we're decreasing our risk of injuries, we're making our body, more efficient and able to do things that it couldn't do before. That's all of that is what muscle will do. And so we want muscle, we want bone,
mhm,
we want to build. And so I think that shift in your mindset as well of because I think a lot of women do, I want to lose weight, I want to be skinny.
mhm,
And so shifting from that, being less and instead starting to focus on, hey, if I focus on building, if I focus on,
mhm,
gaining strength, if I focus on building muscle, and measuring how much strength have I gained? Am I able to do, like do some base strength tests at the beginning and start to watch your progress as you're, progressing and able to go from not being able to do a push-up to doing a push-up, right? And, probably doing a body composition test where you can see that, yes, I am building muscle. My weight might not be changing, because you might not lose weight
Right.
through, perimenopause, menopause, but as you start to build muscle, if your weight's staying the same or maybe it's going down some, your body's going to change. And if you add strength training into that equation, that would be, I would say, what would be the most important measurement is, are you getting stronger? Are you getting fitter? Are you building muscle? And are you really headed in the direction to be, a healthier person through the next 10 years?
Right. Right. I think your first point of staying off the scale is the number one thing. Stay off the scale. It's just like you say, no matter what that number says, it says fat, right? So you need to stay off the scale. And then if you have the ability to get body composition done, like at our facilities, we have an body scan, that's a great way to be able to measure whether what's happening is happening what I want to have happen. I'm gaining some muscle, I'm losing some fat. But if you don't have those things, take a tape measure to your belly button, right to your hips, or find an article of clothing and put it on and say, hey, this is how it feels. Maybe take a picture of yourself, so that as you go through this process, it's not going to happen overnight, right? We didn't get out of shape overnight. We're not going to get in shape overnight. But as you find yourself getting stronger, and you're lifting some more weights, being more fit, that the clothes are going to start to fit better. So find yourself a starting point, whether it is an in-body composition test or an article of clothing or some kind of measurement or a picture. Just find somewhere to start. Now, we pretty much know you got to have some kind of caloric deficit to make a change in our fat, right? Hopefully we're losing fat, not muscle.
Right.
Where do you stand on calories? Do you think you should count them? Should we not count them? If we do count them, how would you figure out like a target number to be at? Or do you believe in diet recall? Like, what are your little quick philosophy on that stuff?
Calories count, right? Like, yeah, like you said, scientifically, we do have to eat less than we're burning. And so if we're gaining fat, if we're in where we're actually gaining fat, we're eating more calories than we're burning. So we need to get that equation working properly. So adding exercise in, starting to build muscle, starting to get our metabolism up, that's going to be one way to burn more. And then we do want to look at, how much are we taking in? And I do think it's a good idea. I especially find, as women are going through, their 40s, 50s, 60s, life can get more sedentary. And so it's really easy to be burning a lot less calories than you used to. And maybe you're still eating the same that you were before. And so you think, I'm getting older and it's getting harder, but actually you're more sedentary, right? Like, actually you're not moving as much. I know for me, like, I was a coach on the floor coaching clients, and like I was way active, right, in my 20s and 30s. And then I started doing more business coaching and started, more office work, right? And I think a lot of people go through that transition where they start to, they get the job that's, maybe they've worked their way up their whole career to get to the job where they get to sit at the desk, and now they're much less active, and they maybe, lifestyle's different, right? Like maybe they have the means to be able to enjoy fine dinners and wines and travel and, some of the things that they maybe didn't, weren't able to when they were younger. And so they want to enjoy those things. And so it is a good idea at this point to take an assessment of where you're at, as far as your calories go.
I'm not a huge believer in counting calories, but I do think it's a good way to just get an idea of what portion sizes are and what does have high calories in it, what doesn't have high calories in it. We just went through the last 3 episodes of reviewing the book, Next Level Metabolism, and how the point is come across of NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how we get a little bit older and now we're sitting around, like even myself, I wasn't coaching, I was sitting in the office, and I kind of plateaued, and I was on a path of losing some fat, and it's because I wasn't out walking around as much anymore. So it's you can say you go to the gym and exercise, right? And maybe you're there for 30 minutes or half an hour or an hour, but then you sit on your butt the rest of the day.
Right.
It's not going to work. You got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. And I think counting your calories, doing some diet recall, all just gives you some kind of awareness of what's going
Right.
on with
And
that
that's all
type
it
of
is.
thing.
It's, treat it like it's like a science experiment, right? Like we get
Mhm.
like tracking is just, okay, what am I doing to know, like if eating this and doing this activity is getting me to this where I'm at right now, like it's an equation, right? This
Right.
plus this equals this, and I want to change the result, then I
Yeah.
need to, do something different here, right? Like I either need to move more or I need to take a look at my nutrition. And a lot of the nutrition, like you said, whether you need to track calories, you may just need to make one small change, right? Like it may
Right.
be just we need to cut our portions back a little bit, or maybe we need to just bump
Mhm.
up our protein and eat a little less sugar. Or for a lot of us, we know, what the thing is we probably need to change, right? Like a lot of us have
Mhm.
that, you know, like, oh, I probably need to stop having dessert every night, or I need to stop
Right.
snacking, so what that is.
Mhm. A lot of times when we start working with a client, if they really want some type of meal planning, we'll give them some real guidelines, the journal that we use. But oftentimes it'll be like, okay, you kind of have an idea what you should be doing or not doing. Let's make sure that we're getting enough sleep when we're not stressing out, because we're going to talk about that stuff in a minute. Let's make sure we're drinking enough water, and let's make sure we're getting enough protein, because we just find that some people just do not take in enough protein to maintain that muscle mass that we want to keep. That we
Yeah, for
want to
sure.
keep.
And that could be one of the first things they track is how many grams of protein are they getting.
Right.
And a lot of times we'll recommend that for our clients
Mhm.
is, all right, well, let's first, instead of looking at calories, let's look at how many grams of protein are you taking in? Because right away, if they start eating more protein, they'll start eating
Mhm.
less of the things that, that might be
Right.
causing them to gain
Right.
weight. So that is a good place to start, is start looking at, okay, let me make sure I'm getting 30 grams of protein at every meal,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what does 30 grams of protein look like? Okay, well, maybe let me make sure that I'm taking in protein that's about the size of my hand, or, so they have an idea of tracking, whether that's, looking at every morsel of food you put in your body and measuring and getting,
Mhm.
obsessive about
Mhm.
it, or, starting to really look at um, something, right? Starting to track something. And I think it is important to track something. And
Right.
if you're not seeing the results that you want, because if you're not tracking, then, what gets measured gets managed, right? So
Mhm.
if you're not tracking, how are you going to change it? How are you going to know
Right.
what's going to work to be able to get you to where you want to be?
Well, let's turn our attention to hormones now a little bit. So, can you explain
Oh
to
boy.
people so they understand what are hormones? What's their purpose?
Okay. Well, what's their purpose? That's a big question, Chris. um, so hormones are really like our body's way of, our body always wants to maintain homeostasis, right? Our body
Right.
actually wants to stay the
Mhm.
same. And so I think, hormones are a messenger really in our body, telling our body, like, what to do. And it's a cascade of like hormones. I mean, there's, all kinds of hormones. Like we don't even
Right.
know all the hormones
Right.
that, I mean, they're even now starting to call vitamin D a hormone, right? So it's like
Mm.
the science of hormones is, I think they're still uncovering the power of our hormones, and
Right.
hormones are powerful. The cool part is we do have control over some of our hormones. I mean, things
Mhm.
like insulin, right? So
Mhm.
insulin goes up when we eat sugar, and insulin tells our body to store. And so if we are trying to lose fat, we want to try to keep our blood sugar stable so we don't have these big fluctuations of
Mhm.
insulin telling our body store fat, right? So that's one hormone, right? And a
Mhm.
lot of people don't realize that that hormone is then connected to other hormones. So if you're if you're having these fluctuations of insulin, it could end up making your how when you're going through perimenopause and menopause, some of the hormones that maybe we don't have as much control over, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, those hormones are going to be affected by hormones like insulin or like cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So if
Mhm.
cortisol's up, that's going to tell our body again, like we're in a panic state. And we there's been shown in the research that if your cortisol is high, you're going to gain fat on your belly. And that's actually
Mhm.
where, as women go through perimenopause and menopause, a lot of women end up with, the fat that they do gain, if they gain fat, tends to be on their belly. And I think it's a lot
Mhm.
stress related, right? Like
Right.
if the cortisol is high, they're going to end up with, all of the effects from that. So
Mhm.
two easy things to, manage your hormones are going to be like, for eating protein with every meal and keeping our blood
Mhm.
sugar nice and stable. And then if we're doing something to bring our cortisol levels down and de-stress. Right. And those two simple hormones can then, that'll keep them from, bouncing off of, I kind of think of it as like, I just think of hormones are like this crazy thing that's bouncing all around our body and telling everything, we got to like do what we can to keep everything stable. Right. So, so if that makes sense, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I always like to try to use the analogy, like hormones are like the message that the body wants to do. The body always wants to stay in type of homeostasis or state. Right. And when it gets stressed or there's some kind of imbalance, it sends off these hormones to tell the body to do what it's supposed to do. And when it gets there, it's like at a castle. It knocks on the door, open the moat, and then it lets itself in, and then the hormones do what they're supposed to do. So in the case of insulin, right? If we're insulin resistant, knocking on the door's not going to get open because the body can't hear that. So it can't hear that it wants to do what it's supposed to do with the insulin, get the blood sugar out of the stream. And the hormones are really like a symphony, right? And they're playing some music, and one thing gets out of key, body's going to send the hormone to get it back into where it's supposed to be. So like in your example with cortisol. So if cortisol stays high, right? We know that from stress, next thing you know, our leptin levels are going to decrease. Okay. And leptin is an appetite suppressant. So now we have this stress, cortisol high. We no longer have the leptin. It's not suppressing our appetites. What happens? We get hungrier and we gain the weight. And if you have cortisol and high leptin, and you have that for a long time, eventually become leptin resistant, just like you could become insulin resistant and things like that. So that's how I always look at it, as kind of like as a symphony. The body's just trying to keep everything going the way it's supposed to be going. And when it's out of whack, it gets way out of whack. So as we take a look at what's happening to the body as we come up onto menopause, we have premenopause and we have menopause, and then we have postmenopause. Most women are familiar with the term estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. But if I'm correct, in premenopause, estrogen kind of takes over a little bit more than it's supposed to. We have a decrease in progesterone. So estrogen takes over longer than it's supposed to. So what happens in the body if we have like too much estrogen like that? What's it going to cause us to do?
Store fat.
Store fat, right?
That's one of the main things that everyone's avoiding.
and it helps prevent bone loss, bone fractures. So what can we do to slow that loss or keep estrogen in line a little bit?
So strength training is going to be the main key for that.
So when we do strength training, we already talked about it improving our body composition, right? Way back in the beginning. And it's going to keep estrogen in line. But then when we get to menopause and postmenopause, we no longer have estrogen, right? Or we don't have as much estrogen. As much. So what can we do about that?
How can we build more estrogen? You're quizzing me. I don't know all of this.
Yes, I'm just not like...
These are hard questions.
I have some hard questions today. So strength training, again...
It's going to
increase estrogen as we get older, when we get through menopause, right? So strength training is a key to so many things.
Yeah. Bottom line, strength training is going to be the answer to anti-aging, right? Like that's the answer to building the muscle, building the strength, keeping our hormones stable. And I think there has been a lot of research as far as, strength training to keep those hormones in balance and keep them stable. And so, when we lift weight and testosterone, which women need testosterone. And, that's one of the big ones that does decrease that I know has definitely been directly related to strength training, along with growth hormone as well, which growth hormone helps us to drop body fat, and I think, I think for a lot of women, I remember when I did my first book, I was at at Rodale doing the photo shoot, and they talked about how Prevention Magazine was always looking for pictures of women walking, and that was
Mhm.
because that was what they thought, extra women did once,
Right.
you were in
Right.
your, 50s or 60s, you walked, like that was your exercise.
Mhm.
And so I think, I always think of women walking, and so really shifting that from, women, women making walking as their priority exercise. And yes, we do need to be active, and we need to get our
Mhm.
steps in, and we need to make sure we
Mhm.
aren't sedentary, but shifting your priority for your workouts, like looking at your week and going, okay, yes, I'm going to be active. I'm going to get my steps in. But when am I strength training? Like where's strength training going to fit in? Because that's going to be my
Mhm.
number one priority to really being able to get through perimenopause and menopause, feeling the way I want to feel, and keeping my hormones stable, and being strong, and actually getting to where you're reaching your peak health and fitness, through what most people end up giving up during, right? So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like strength training is like this, secret that I think a lot of women don't make their priority, because they
Mhm.
think, and I think a lot of women need help, right? They need a coach. They need someone
Yeah.
like you, Chris. They need someone like our,
Right.
our gym, right, to help them with
Right.
it,
Right.
because it is the secret to, staying young and really maintaining those hormones. I think strength training, along with nutrition, and stress. Like if you get your blood sugar stable with your nutrition and you manage your stress, you're going to end up
Mhm.
getting through perimenopause and menopause feeling like, from what I've seen from my clients. And that's,
Mhm.
I definitely, as I'm approaching, I'm like, okay, I
Here we
gotta
go, Rachel.
like, do it, it's got to work. It's got to be a priority, right? So that's the key.
Yeah, I think I'm always surprised when I talk to a client and I say, what do you like? What do you like most? What do you like? Do you like metabolic workouts? Do you like strength training? They almost always say they like the strength training. They like the feeling of feeling strong. They like the feeling of feeling tight again, and they like what it does to their bodies. And they feel so empowered that they can do this. They can do some kind of strength training, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, for a lot of women, I mean, especially, the demographic that are right now, turning 40s, 50s, 60s, we grew up with, you know, like you can't do a push up, do a girl push up.
Mhm.
You can't, lift too heavy, you're going to hurt yourself.
Mhm.
You can't, like, you can't do a pull up, just hang from the bar and do the girl version,
Yeah.
So we grew up with this, like, mental dialogue of, like, you can't do that. Can't. So when you start to flip that, I mean, we go back to mindset of what we've started this conversation
Mhm.
as, and start to go, wait, what can I do? Like,
Mhm.
who cares that I'm, 47 years old? I mean, I've, in the last couple years, have learned how to do monkey bars and climb a rope. Like, I've, like, done things that I've never done before in my life, right? Like,
Mhm.
don't think you can't learn new skills, or, get stronger, or lift more weight, or learn how to do a push up for the first time in your life. Like, all of the things you've been told all your life, can't, shift that to what can I do? And you're going to be
Right.
surprised at how much you can do, and how much, as you do shift that mind and start to look for what can I do, it's going to help you to, keep progressing your health and fitness as you get older.
I, the not the like the generation that we coach, not over 40, but the 56 years old. Back in the 70s, it was just so much was just aerobics. Do aerobics, do
Yep.
aerobics, do aerobics. Don't
Mhm.
pick up weights, do aerobics, make your light weights. I mean, aerobics. And that just destroyed our bodies, right? Because
Yeah, and
we
especially
lost
now,
fat.
like, when that's like, if
Yeah.
you're doing that into your,
Yeah.
40s and 50s, you're going to be like losing bone mass, losing muscle,
Exactly.
really setting
Exactly.
yourself up to like make this very difficult. Yeah.
Make it difficult. And strength training has such a powerful effect, positive effect on all of these hormones that we just discussed. There's a positive effect on estrogen and testosterone and leptin and cortisol. So strength training, obviously I wrote a book about it. I think that's I think that is one of the biggest keys to getting through menopause and living a longer, healthier life. I mean, if you're going
I
to do
agree.
something, you
Yeah.
need to lift weights. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, well, we think about like, as we age, one of the main things that happens as we age is we atrophy, we lose muscle, our bodies get weaker,
Mhm,
and that doesn't have to happen. Like, that doesn't have to happen at all.
mhm.
We have control over being able. You can gain strength right into your 80s, 90s. Like, people have gained strength. It's just you got to make a concerted effort to do that.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, if people start to realize what is possible and that you can, and that you won't hurt yourself. I think a lot of people are afraid, oh, if I lift weights, I'm going to hurt myself. If you work with a coach who knows what they're
Right.
doing and who knows, how to start you at a place that is going to be safe for you and that is going to progress you slowly over time, you're only going to see, progress and, improvements in your strength and your fitness and your health. So, definitely work with an expert. I think that's really important to not try to do it on your own.
Yeah. If someone had, um, 1 day a week to exercise, what would you tell them to do?
Strength train. Yeah.
What if
Full
they had
body
2 days
strength
a week?
training program.
Mhm,
2 days a week, I'd still say full body strength training program. I mean,
mhm,
really, probably 3 days a week, it
mhm.
would still be, um, full body strength training program
Right,
because you're going to get the cardiovascular benefits from that. I mean,
right.
especially if it's a full body circuit train where you're,
Mhm.
circuit training and your heart rate's going up, like you're not getting
Yeah,
the cardiovascular
right.
benefit, plus you're getting the muscle built,
Mhm,
plus you're, getting all of the benefits of strength training. So, 2 to 3 days a week. And if you're recovering from that, like that is the key with strength training, is that you do need to have that recovery, to really make sure that you're rebuilding. Because if you're not, rebuilding, then that we always say
mhm.
you get your results from the recovery, not from the workout
Right.
itself. So you got to make sure you do have that time to recover, repair your muscles,
Mhm,
rebuild, and then you're ready to go again. So yeah, and I think you can do endurance and you can include that. I'm an endurance athlete. I love going for a run or a bike ride. That's part of my regimen, is because I
mhm.
love it for my mind, and I just, it's part of what I enjoy. I don't necessarily do it because I know that I'm getting my biggest bang for my buck in the gym lifting weights. That's where I more do it because I enjoy it, you know?
Mhm. I think so many people, there's a lot of people that aren't exercising, right?
Hmm.
And they're afraid of getting hurt. They don't know where to start. I'm just a huge proponent of, we have an accountant to do our accounting, right? We have a lawyer to take care of our lawyer things, right?
Yeah.
We're always paying people to cook our food, right? Going to
Yeah.
restaurants. You need to have a coach. You're
Yeah.
in a part of life that's going to set you up for the rest of life.
Yeah.
You know, 20s and your 30s, your body's just started to deteriorate a little bit. But when you start to hit 45, 50 years old, it starts to accelerate. And if you think about what you did or what you think you did when you were in your 20s, it's not the same thing. It's
Right.
we changed the industry's changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
And you're different. Your body's different, and everyone
Yeah.
is different, and what everyone is dealing with is different, and everyone's metabolism is different, and so everyone's program should be different. So to just pick up a book or watch YouTube or something like that, it just doesn't make sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
No, and I think it's a good point of, I think a lot of people do have this, I'll just do what I did before, or like, I want to
Yeah,
be where I was when I was in my 30s, or,
yeah,
but like, you're a different body, start from
yeah.
where you're at right now and move
Hmm.
forward from there. I
Hmm.
mean, at this point, like, you may have had surgeries, you may have,
Hmm.
had, your body's different. Like, you're definitely in a different, place. So give yourself grace, that if you're not where you were when you're in your 20s and 30s, that's okay. And don't put that pressure on yourself.
Right.
Instead, just start from where you are and start to make progress moving forward. And yes, work with an expert, because if, like you said, it's like the one thing, their body, like your body is one of the most important things that
Right.
you have, right? Like this is what we got to live in for the rest of our life. And if we don't get a trusted expert who we know, knows what they're doing and knows they can help us to do a program that's been designed scientifically, customized for you, you're gonna be much more likely to have that success of progressing and building that strength and being able to get, as you get older, really get stronger and get fitter. And I think all of us want that. We all want independence as we age too. And I think, like, if we don't start getting strong now, if we don't start on this path, like people who end up not hiring the coach and not starting the strength training program, and then start feeling worse and worse and worse, it's hard then to try to undo. I mean, we know all of us that own gyms, like we see people come in that are in their 60s, or that are realizing like, oh my gosh, my knees hurt, I can't get up anymore, I can't go up the stairs as easy, I can't lift my grandkid up, I can't, right? And now we got to try to rebuild that. But if you actually get this information at a point where you start now, wherever you're at, start today.
Right.
Like, it's going to be easier to start today than it is to wait another 10 years or another 20 years. So today's the day. And there's definitely like the longer you strength training, the benefits accumulate. So the sooner you start, and the sooner you start properly with a coach who's giving you a program that's designed for you, you're then, it's like an investment. It's like putting, it's like when people talk about, it's play the long game, right? It's the same with your health and fitness. Like, we got to play the long game. I think we all have that, mentality right now, right? We all got to play the long game. So it's it's the same with our bodies. Like, don't think of it as this short-term quick fix. I got to get back to what I was in my 30s. Like, think of it as I'm starting now, and I'm going to play this, long game to get my body healthier and fitter and stronger and able to keep doing the things that I want to do, and be able to, hang out with my family and go on trips and like enjoy life. Like, that's what fitness is all about. And I think that kind of brings me to your mindset thing. Like, if you're not motivated to do it, then start to think about what are you going to miss out on? Like, what things are you not going to be able to do if you don't start now? If you keep heading down the path of getting weaker, and and you give in to it's too late, and I'm just going to gain weight and feel worse and worse, like, you're not going to be able to enjoy the things in life down the road that you might want to enjoy. So I think it is important to kind of sit down and really sit with that. Like, okay, if I stay on the path I'm on, what am I going to miss out on? And if I, right now make a change, if I right now hire the coach, if I right now do my first workout, if I right now take the advice of Chris and Rachel and I get started, where are we going? Like, what's, what, and where do I want to, like, where do you want to go? Because it's up to you.
I like the idea of building. You build on something, because it's not going to happen overnight. Like, you don't, I always give this example. You don't start on the first rung of the ladder and go to the 12th rung. You got to go each rung of the ladder. When we start to read, we read in first grade and then in second grade. We don't go from the second grade to the 12th grade. You got to go through those different paths. You got to take the path, and it builds. Strength training builds. What we do today, then you build on whatever you do the next time, and the next time, and the next time, and the next time. So it's a process like anything else, but you got to get started. You just got to get started, right? You got to get started doing something.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I mean, as people start to, embrace strength training and start to realize what they can do, it's magical. It's pretty cool stuff.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty cool stuff.
It's always a lot of fun to watch people lift a weight that they never thought they were going to be able to lift, or do a movement that they didn't think they were going to be able to move, or they come in and they tell me a story about how they helped their friend move and they weren't sore the next day, and they were able to move these boxes. Or we just had a woman go hiking, I don't know, in Colorado, and She felt like she was going to fall behind with her son and her husband because they're very fit. So she came on board with us. 6 months later, she went on the hike. She just had a fantastic time because she was able to enjoy it. She was able to keep up. She was able to do what she was supposed to do. And that doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, right? You got to get
Yeah.
started. You have to
Yeah.
get started.
And it also, like, because we're talking about menopause and perimenopause,
Yeah.
you might have, a week where you are having a lot of symptoms and
Mm-hmm.
you didn't sleep well and you had hot flashes and
Mm-hmm.
like you feel like you're not making progress, or and it's easy to give up during those times. And
Yeah.
so just keep in mind you're riding it out. You're going to ride it out because there
Mm-hmm.
will be days or weeks when you're just like, ugh, this isn't working, or
Yeah.
I just don't feel good. And so
Mm-hmm.
just if you focus on the long term and you start to
Mm-hmm.
commit to yourself, you're going to stay committed, no matter what. That'll help
Mm-hmm.
you get through those times if you are, not feeling good, because there might be times when you don't feel good.
Yeah. I always like to, like in the first 1 or 2 sessions when I'm working with a client, I always ask them to try to remember, take a note somewhere of where you're at today, what we were able to do today. And I had this one woman, um, I call her Hollywood now because she's been on the podcast a few times. Her very first day, she stepped off the step, one step down, and fell on the ground. Her leg was so weak.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is never coming back. Right.
Right.
And she was so mad at herself that she let her body get so deconditioned that she could not step down and accept those forces, the deceleration forces. Now she goes around like crazy. I mean, she's exercising like crazy and
Yeah.
and doing great things. So just always remember where you were that those first days. If you're not working with Rachel and I, you're somewhere else in this country and you're doing some stuff, just make a little note of where you are. And a month later, just see the difference in how you feel and how you move. 2 months, 6 months down the road. And when you have those tough days like you're talking about, because we all have them, even if we're not in menopause, we
Right.
all have a tough day where we just don't feel like we're there. Just remember what we were like, because we made progress. We made some changes. And you got
Yeah.
to stick with it. Consistency. Yeah. It's a great point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate all your knowledge today, Rachel. You gave us some good stuff to
Thank
think
you
about.
for having me. Yeah, this is definitely a fun topic, and it's something.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was just thinking about a story of one of our clients.
Yeah.
She's joined. It's been probably 15 years she's been a member of our gym.
Mhm.
And I know, like you have clients that you've seen actually go from,
Yeah.
maybe in their 40s to their 60s, right?
Mhm.
She's now 67. And the other day we were all finishing up class and she had just done some kettlebell swings and she just reached down and touched her toes. And she said, this is my childhood. Like, because I didn't have a childhood, I didn't realize I could be active when I was young.
Wow.
And I was never encouraged to be active. And so she gave this whole speech about how, like, now I get to be a kid. I get to touch my toes. I get to, she hikes mountains. Like, that's her thing. Her and her husband go and hike all these mountains. And so like, she's like, this is her childhood at 67 years old. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, huh, there you go. Like it's not too late. Here she is having her childhood because now she actually can do all the things that she wasn't able to do before. And so, I think that's what you and I want for everybody, right? We want that.
That's why we're in the business.
Feeling.
Yeah,
like,
that's why we're in the, that's why we do what we do, right?
Yep.
It's great. So I don't have anything else. Do you have any other thoughts? I mean, you gave us some great thoughts. Let's get our mindsets in place. Let's do some strength training and let's get started today. You're going to take 3 points out of today.
I think those are,
mindset,
I think,
training,
it comes down to, like, control what you can, you can't control everything. And, yes, depending on your body, your hormones may end up not playing the symphony you want them to play.
Right.
But, at the same time, just ask yourself, what can I control? I always ask that about, it's always my, like, go-to when I'm stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious. Like, what can I control today? Like, what is the thing I can do today? And, the thing I can control is I can hire the coach. I can go make myself a healthy meal. I can, do a workout. These are the things like that we have control over. And so even if you don't feel like it, even if you're like, I'm tired, I don't have the energy, I didn't sleep good last night, I'm having hot flashes, pick one of those things and do it, just start getting the momentum going. Cause I feel like a lot of people wait to feel motivated and action is what gives you motivation.
Exactly.
So take that action, call the coach, do the workout, eat something healthy, do some stress relief, and you'll start to then, once you have that action happening and realize, oh, I'm doing it, you'll tend to feel like more motivated to start thinking about doing more. So I hope this has helped those of you listening, and thank you for having me, Chris.
Well, thank you, Rachel. Celebrating our 200th podcast.
It's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, it's so awesome. I mean, you've helped so many people over these 200 podcasts with all the information you've shared, and bringing on different people, and it's just awesome what you're doing. So congratulations. You should be proud.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for listening to what we have today, what we said today. Rachel, could you give us how, if somebody wants to get a hold of you or follow you, all that?
I'm real active on Instagram. So if you jump on, it's rachelcosgrove.co. So RACHELCOSGROVE.co. So if you jump on my Instagram and follow me there, that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then we'll go from there.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for watching and participating in our celebration. And you can look for us next Tuesday for more insight on how to get fit, feel younger, and live better. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Chris.